Hey dudes, welcome back to another episode of our Rhomas Men's Team podcast. You are about to listen to one of our prior team meetings. If you ever want to join one of our live sessions that we have every Monday and Friday, head over to rhomas.com. That's RHOMAS.com, and put your email in and we will send you a live link every time we record. We generally record on Mondays and Fridays. So if you ever want to be on the actual podcast, like we bring men up all the time to talk about their goals, talk about their obstacles, etc., head over to rhomas.com. And then also, if you want to help support the channel grow and also have access to exclusive content, book reviews, extra whiteboard sessions, etc., and some coaching sessions, head over to patreon.com and support us. We would love it. But if not, no biggie. We'll see you on the live sessions. Later, dudes. Enjoy this podcast.
We are here, dude. What's up, bro?
What's up, man?
Sorry for my tardiness, dude.
No, it was all me. I'm sorry, guys. I've been a dunce lately. The schedule's been absolutely insane.
What you been up
to? Well, there's a lot of stuff happening with the business. So all like the marketing stuff and all the seminars and everything that I was telling you guys about in the past, all that's happening. And then because of my personality, it's very much a binary barbell style, like either completely not engaged or overly engaged. So I signed up for 5 of them and back to back to back to back when and in reality it's 10 of them because there's two classes per like workshop, let's say. And then on top of that, I had a conference, and on top of that, they've got some other business opportunities, etc. And I remember looking at my schedule, and this happens. It should not be happening, but it happens a certain amount of time throughout the year, where I just looked at my schedule and it's like, okay, I'm not going to get sleep until 14 days from now. So it'll be 4 hours here, 5 hours here. And then I had my mom's birthday this weekend, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. But then in my head, I'm like, fuck that, Yeah. And then, so I got 2 hours of sleep on there, flew out to Philadelphia, had dinner with her, then flew back the next morning, like that sort of thing. And it's just like back to back to back to back. I'm not complaining at all because all this stuff is what I asked for. But it's just, like I'm looking forward to getting some sleep. I got some sleep last night thanks to the guys on the scorecard team. They took it. They've been running the scorecard team for the last week and a half, and just things like that. But it's all good, man. It's just I need to figure out how to get a little more Z's.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's also like, how do you figure out how to not schedule things like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's certain things that fall in line. Like I'm not willing to not push forward the business. That's like, sure. That is my number one. That's the lead domino that impacts everything else. So, and then to do that, I'm in a phase where, as you guys know, I have to throw my hat over the fence before I know exactly how it's going to turn out. Mm-hmm. And then now we have this weird opportunity with COVID where a whole bunch of investors have been sitting on the sidelines, let's say, for the last year and a half ish. And it's like I either capitalize on an opportunity now to meet them where they're at, or I sit on the sidelines myself because I want to get a little more sleep or something, and then I've missed the opportunity. Gotcha. So it's this weird perfect storm. And then the end of the year actually for investing is the most productive time of the year because a whole bunch of people get the deadline of the end of the year. So, but I need to start doing that work now to start filling the pipeline with all these people who are eventually going to have a massive amount of urgency towards the end of the year. So it's like, I don't want to be sitting at the end of the year being like, oh, I wish I would have done it 5 months ago.
So there's rhyme or reason, because when I spaz on stuff, there's generally no rhyme or reason. I'm just like, I'm going to do all this stuff now. That's what I thought. So that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, I add stupid stuff to the schedule. Like I want to start competing in dance, so I'm starting to do that. The bodybuilding, so like that's purely self-inflicted, right? That's yeah.
I will say you look good for someone who hasn't gotten any sleep.
Hey, thanks, man.
So yeah, that's pretty good. I deteriorate instantly. I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, no. So do I. I don't know. It's probably just the lighting, but how about you? What's going on with you?
Good, man. I was in Boston all weekend. That went very well. So it was great.
Oh, nice, man. So what did you guys do there? Like how many shows?
We did stand up. We did 4, 1 Thursday, 1 Friday, 2 Saturday. 4
I mean, so you know exactly what it's like to go have the sleep just be on a very volatile schedule. I mean,
my sleep stunk all weekend, dude.
Yeah.
I have the best intentions. It's just when I'm by myself, I can't fall asleep till like 2 a.m. because there's just so much fun stuff to do.
There's so much fun stuff to do, dude.
My wife's there to handle me. It's always nice to be, come to bed. And I'm like, last night I was like, I'm not even tired yet. I was like, I'll lay in bed and read a book. Dude, I got like 5 pages in. I was like, passed out. I was like, I was tired.
Oh, yeah. I believe it, man.
But yeah,
how'd the shows go?
Awesome. They're awesome. They're all of them were sold out. It was fucking sick. It was fun.
So now that it's official and Shane has been on Joe Rogan, are we allowed to talk about it?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then your name, I looked at the title, and it's like, you know, your name right there. So that experience, very few people know what it's like to kind of step into that platform, that stage at such a grand scale. How does it feel for you guys? Like, is it normal? Is it weird? What is it?
I mean, to be fair, it's like he kind of has to deal with all the pressure of it. So it's like I get to just enjoy it. I'm like, sweet, awesome, this is great. You know, I don't really have to deal with any of like the perceptual things of like, you know, he was on there, so typically people were like, you know, that's kind of the pressure associated with it. But honestly, dude, even despite that, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't really get shocked, and I don't know if it's a bad way, but like any of that stuff, I'm just kind of like, you know, it's just a show. So once you start doing a thing, you're just kind of like, it's just, once you do a thing, it kind of demystifies it from all of its like, whoa, this is crazy. It's like, yeah, it's just, you know, it's another thing. So yeah, I don't really think about it. I'm more kind of tethered to the stuff that I'm ultimately up to, and I try to keep myself grounded in that totally. So
do you find that there's fundamentals in just staying grounded in creation, like just keep on creating?
Yeah, like, you know, it's like because all that stuff kind of comes and goes, and, you know, like, it's like that's all stuff outside of my locus of control. So it's like I just stay focused on my stuff, and I know from personal life experience that, you know, the wheel spins up and it spins down. So I don't get too kind of hung up on like, you know, I get like, oh, nice, that's awesome. I'm not like negative or like whatever, but it's like I'm like, oh, this is cool. I just stay to the fundamentals and, you know, try to keep doing my stuff.
It's very Phil Jackson of you.
Very Phil Jackson, dude. But yeah, I'm telling you, it's like you do things like, you know, it's funny. Like I did Philly's Funniest 2014, and at the time, you know, I'm an open mic comedian. That's the fucking dream. Oh, if I only win this, then you win it, and you go, okay, that's really not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? So it's like I try to.
I'd be wearing the medal, even if there was no medal. So I'd make a medal and wear it around Philly for the next 6 months. Absolutely.
Well, it's funny because then, well, yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's like, you know, that's years ago, but it's like, it's just an example is you can kind of put these things as like the end all be all, and it's important to strive for them. But after you kind of do a couple, you go, I think this law of my personal experience of the universe applies to things that are 20 times bigger than this, blah, 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 blah. You know, so it's like, cool, this is good. But people get lost in the sauce of the thing, and they're like, oh man, I'm blah, 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 blah. And it's like, maybe, I don't know. So.
Yeah. This is where I have trouble with like more Zen type of mindsets, because I personally like that. And I love it. The only thing I'm hesitant on is agreeing that not wanting more, or that wanting more is bad, right? Like I've heard that from too many different texts. And for me, that's always my answer. Like if anybody asks me the core thing, what I want, my if I was being completely honest, it is always more. That's the answer. The things that I want to focus on, the answer is just more. And I know to a certain, let's say, psychographic group, that could be unhealthy. I totally understand that, how that could send you down a path, and it could manifest in a very negative way. But for me, and maybe these are my famous last words, maybe in the future I'll regret it, but for me, that has always worked out. Like I'm extremely happy now. And let's say 10 years ago, I had the same philosophy of more. So at some point, it's supposed to catch up. Or if you stay on positive paths of wanting more and having good intentions, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Because my brain goes to, well, that's why you and I are here, because our ancestors wanted more. They didn't just say, oh, I'm just not going to, I'm just going to hang out, right? Like, I want to strive. I want to achieve. I want to stay on offense. And like Gunther's saying, stay on the attack. So what's your perspective on that? Where do you land?
Well, it depends on what it is. What is it at the expense of, and you're pretty conscious of, you kind of attack your like year and thinking in a pretty holistic way. But, that's the only thing. It's like, yeah, and I don't like when people get into that thing, like that's inherently wrong. Or if I just like, move to a cottage, I'm inherently right. It's like, well, not necessarily, because it's like, say you're like, I want to make some sort of lasting contribution to like my family or society, and that entails like a large kind of like thrust into all this stuff and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, what is it at the expense of? Now, if it's like, I want more, and you have a family, and then it's like, that's, you kind of negate the family and more kind of takes over, then yeah, that's a problem. But yeah, I don't know. I think, like I said, you're pretty conscious and you're not out like snapping people's necks and like interfering with like third world country politicians and stuff. So it's like, that's when it gets kind of like, that's when it can get kind of, that's when that thinking, I think, can get kind of bad, when like we're over there, bombing Yemen so that we can put in our pipeline instead of Russia's. It's like, well, all right, that kind of sucks for the people who have to deal with people's like urge to like be like, no, I want that. It just sucks. But like like you were saying, it's like, and that's where I think you're entirely right, because you do get people who hide behind that, like, yeah, that's just for like greedy people stuff. It's like, well, you'd be surprised. You could actually probably do a lot of good. Like, just because you do and you're growing and doing all that stuff doesn't mean you're bad. It's like you could use all that stuff and just do tremendously awesome good things. So
yeah, oh yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think there's
people sorry, last thing, the people use that as an excuse to be lazy sometimes. Like, well, that's all fucked up and shitty anyway. It's like, no. It's not that.
Well, it's actually surprisingly easy to do that, because as soon as you try to grow outside of your existing shell, there's a certain amount of surface tension that it takes to like break through that seal. And you don't need much to motivate you back towards like the warmth of your shell.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, well, rich people are bad, or like anybody who wants more, that's just bad. Like, I need to be more zen about this, So yeah, Matt, I think it's a good mental model that you're helping me put together, which is like, if it's holistic, so it encompasses all of your goals, so it doesn't create a crash or a car crash with any of your other goals. And then if it's good for you in the future and good for those around you in the present and in the future, something like that, like, but it's a little more complex than just, oh, don't want more, don't be greedy, because I think it can land in that category, just being greedy. It's like, I'm not fucking being greedy. It's like, if others can do it, why can't I?
Yeah, as long as you know why, and if it's simply like, well, I don't know. I think it's kind of like, it's all up to the person, and it all depends on like, why. It's like, I know exactly, if you're telling me, why do you want money? I could list the exact reasons. Like, I want to have a nice yard. I want to be able to have a nice life, blah, 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 blah. There is none of that. And I'm, this is kind of my personal feeling. I don't have like a thing of like, well, if that guy has an Audi F9 or whatever the fuck it is, I need to have a BMW 9.5. It's like, I don't care about that. And I think that can get unhealthy for people, because, it's like, well, next year they're coming out with a new one and now you're both fucking losers. So it's like, that can kind of stink. But, if you're like, I just want a nice, reliable car, it's like, yeah, go get whatever you want.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I like I said, I think it's all a matter of balance, and at least for me personally, because again, whenever I get caught up in that whole, like, I need to justify my existence via this thing, it doesn't work for me, just for me personally.
Yeah.
If I can just be like, well, if I just get up every day and like make stuff and I know why I'm making it, I'm happy. So
yeah, well, and Kaizen just said something that's perfect. He said, doing more, but from a place of being able to help others more. Absolutely. That's basically completely what I mean. I was lucky enough to have a mother that made me, I think, way more empathetic than my DNA should have allowed. But my motivation comes from that, comes from, okay, if I can do this, and my core is teaching. I just love teaching. I don't know why. And it's like, if I can do more to help others and expand, and also achieve rewards in the meantime, because I have gone down the path of trying to help others, and then not take the rewards. And that just gets me resentful, as we talk about, payback ratio, all of those types of things. And it just and then it made me revert, kind of overcorrect the other way and just saying, oh, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm going to be zen about it. And it's like, well, that sucks, because there's no rewards in that, and there's no helping anybody. So now I'm back to the other side, but like, not taking it to the extreme of just trying to win everything at all costs, because I'm also obsessed with winning.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it all, I think, is all person to person, and like the things where these get tangled up is that the only, a person individually can decide like what mode of thinking / living is ultimately the best for themselves. So like, I can be like, this is what I do, and if you're like, well, I think this, it's like, or if anyone's like, I don't like that, it's like, dude, that's totally valid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing that I've been working on personally, and it's kind of I guess almost the inverse of this, of what you're saying in a way, but I want to validate this for myself, rather than not just like taking it like the words of it, but the idea of, how do I say this? So working on kind of letting go of as many of your habitual urges as possible. I guess this is nowhere near the opposite of this, but it's similar, where it's like you can also achieve stuff with, let's say, like taking a less and less approach, if that makes sense.
A what approach?
Like almost like a less and less thing. Like not, and again, this isn't the same thing, but it's just it's kind of, I guess, somewhat the inverse of it, of like, I'm trying to think if I'm setting this up wrongly. Well, either way, so the thing I'm doing right now is like really focusing on every single one of my, let's say, like just habitual urges across all domains of like eating, looking at my phone. And you're pretty disciplined, so I don't think this is the opposite, but it's like, what kind of predetermined kind of grooves of like habitual thinking patterns and action patterns are built into your personality now, and what happens if you start to deny all of them? Like what kind of comes as a result of that, by just kind of letting stuff go. So I've been doing stuff along the lines of that, but to be, like you were saying, it's ultimately so I can kind of focus all of that energy into that which I am currently trying to focus on, and then take that kind of to where it needs to go. So sorry, that's for that big confusing preamble, because it seemed like a less and less thing, but it's not. So
no, I what do they say? There's this analogy. What was it? Oh, it's like a 300-watt light bulb can light a room, but a 300-watt laser can cut through steel. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds good to me. So it's this focusing of the same amount of energy, but you're closing up all of the gaps to force that light out into one singular effort. No, I think that makes complete sense, and I do try to live my life like that, but it's always helpful to hear you talk about, because it helps me visualize that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the one book I just read is fantastic. It talks about that, and they, a lot of it's based in kind of like, like Indian, like Hinduism and Eastern stuff, where they talk about like your personality and all of your various traits are just these things. They call them samskaras, where it's like, I have like an anger samskara. Like if something happens, I spaz, and I'm like, that's just the way I am. And it's like being able to learn how to like kind of boil yourself down to your essence and kind of look at all those things you take for granted and kind of just see what it's like to kind of deny them or like cut back on them, and then kind of like, so you can maximize all of, like they're saying, just be able to take all of your energy and just take as much as it can away of it from all like the stuff that is kind of extraneous, if that makes sense.
Chula Copper coming in with the nice data. Plasma cutters are 25,000 degrees Celsius. Did you ever try to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit? I swear to God, it's impossible.
Just
Some of the
Google
most complex things ever.
Yeah, just Google it instantly. I'm just like, okay, this is what it is. But the analogy I like too is they're saying like, so you have like vital energy. They call it chi, and like in like Chinese things, it's called prana. In India, they have a bunch of different words for this thing. But you have your vital life force. And if you have all of these things and distractions on your mind, it just trickles in 90 directions. If you can learn how to cut all those things off, as much as you don't have to like beat yourself up, but like when you're ready to like now, I'm ready to give up my phone when I wake up. I'm able to. It's not like that much of a struggle. I can say, no, I don't need to look at shit. I don't need to look at Instagram. I'm not looking at that till like I take a dump. That's the only. I'm trying to just use my phone while I'm taking a dump in that capacity, which is perfect. But But it's like people get frustrated because they have all this energy, but it's trickling in all these different sources, and the results of that typically are very unsatisfying.
How much, if you had to guess, if you had to put a number to it, because I always ruin conversations by asking this kind of stuff, if you had to put a number to it, what percentage of energy would you say most men or you or me are wasting just via this tool right here?
The phone?
Oh, yeah.
Well, easily 3 to 5 hours a day, I think, is screen time. So the average American, I think, and kids, I think, are up to like 10 hours a day. sending, I think about like, I don't know, man, maybe like 150 text messages a day. Because I think about that, you know, so it's like, that's pretty nuts. And you don't even notice you're doing it, which is crazy. But, dude, well, with the phone alone, I would say easily, and I'm actually pretty good with it and disciplined. You know, I can still do a lot better. But I would say the average person at least 35 to 40%.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
35 to 40% of your energy every day.
Dude, that was the thing I'm doing right now for the meditation, which I'm still working on. I've decided I'm going to take even more time because I like where it's kind of going and I don't want to rush it. But, dude, average American, 4 hours per day on TV, 3 hours per day screen time. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time. It's like, yeah, man. Watching 4 fucking hours a day of TV. I was clocking 1 a night. Me and Brittany would watch 1 episode, and even that, now we do like maybe every other night and every 3 nights, and then we're getting to the point where we kind of both prefer to like not watch TV and lay in bed and read books.
Absolutely.
So it's like, dude, and again, TV's awesome. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, dude, like if you're not being mindful of it, Jesus Christ, man, that's when you start to clock the 4 hours. And that's when I go away by myself. I'm in a hotel room, just YouTube, watching the same fucking videos, watching bullshit on TV. It's like, it's tough, man. It's very hard to discipline yourself in those kind of domains.
Dude, I have found the most enjoyment, and I would love for somebody to, you know, take on this as a challenge. Focusing most of your time on skill acquisition and creation. I don't know if that's just me, it's just my personality. I have no idea. But I can say for sure that when I spend the majority of my time on acquiring a skill that will pay me dividends for the rest of my life, like dancing, it's whatever else, etc., and or creating so that others can benefit from their own skill acquisition, that's the most fulfilling things for me to do, during my productive hours, skill acquisition and creation.
Yeah, I would definitely say the days that I don't do those things are the days that I kind of suffer. If I'm like not doing things in that regard, or even like I said, I've gotten very good at like getting into the stuff other than that of life. You know, again, like the family stuff and all that. I really enjoy that. But dude, yeah, no, I think you're 100% right, man. When people get kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's typically what kind of, that's what I think a lot of people suffer from.
And how have you ever layered them? So like I'm seeing Gunther saying he gets caught up in Instagram workout reel algorithm black hole. But I do think there's benefit to that. Like there is something saying for like watching others going and being successful to motivate yourself. So Gunther, what I have tried in the past is like when I'm doing my workouts, the last few workouts I did, I put on, what is it? The Fittest on Earth. It's the CrossFit Games, like the CrossFit Games documentary. So I'm kind of getting out the entertainment and the motivational value simultaneously because I've layered it in with my workout. Okay. And that's kind of like a nice symbiotic way of doing it, as opposed to doing my workout and then getting caught up in it for, you know, an hour after or something like that. So it's it's worked for me. I don't know if it'll work for anybody else, but I'm curious if Gunther has done it, or Matt, if you've done similar layering techniques.
No, that's kind of cool. I like to just listen to music when I work out, but but I do like that idea of just combining stuff, or like, and again, all these things are like almost like you're saying, they're like solved if you just take like 5 minutes to look up like a screen time monitoring app. Like you can do all this stuff very easily, but it's like, you know, you have to make the conscious decision to be like, hey, and like Zach was saying too, and I know this too, it's like, you know, YouTube podcast playing in the background, blah, 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 blah.
Oh yeah, I love that idea.
For sure, and that does throw off the screen time, but again, it's like, dude, just picking up, checking email. I think the average person checks their email like 40 times a day. And the guy was saying, imagine like walking to the end of your driveway 40 times a day and checking for mail. It's like, you know, you're like, yeah.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, you like feel kind of dumb. Why do I?
My partner does that, dude.
Really?
Oh yeah, the U.S. Postal Service is his version of Instagram because he's 76 years old. Dude, I swear to God, every single time, every time he goes to the bathroom, or if I go to the bathroom, he's like, check the mail. He's like, I'll check it. You know, at least 15 times, right? Like throughout the day. And then when it's not, he peeks out the window to see, like, he's like, it's weird, the mail truck didn't come. It's noon. So yeah, they should have been here right now. Like, oh my God. Yeah. So,
yeah, man. I mean, it really is that, like, and I think the thing I think that matters the most is And you know, just to reiterate, it's like, again, like what you end up doing with your time, it's really up to you. And like, you're the sole arbiter of whether or not that works for you, whether people are like, that's not the right way, that's the wrong way. It's like, you can go full scale both ways. Doesn't, honestly, I really am convinced it doesn't matter outside of like how that works for you. But like being able to learn how to exercise your willpower is just like, dude, it's something we're never really taught to do.
Oh, and we're taught the opposite. Yes, especially in America.
In school, it's like, just sit still. And it's like, you know, and that, I guess that's willpower, but it's like, it's kind of different because none of it's self-chosen. So it's like, you know, using your willpower and self-chosen activities are totally different. It almost gives, for me, it puts a bad taste in your mouth because you associate like just sitting idle in school as like willpower is like, fuck this sucks, rather than like, no, use it toward like, you know, fulfilling yourself in some way. But it's like,
yeah, it's almost, to a certain extent, it might even hurt the process because it's like, that's pointless use of developing willpower. Like your brain doesn't see any, if you don't like school, especially, your brain doesn't see any real positive consequence or reward after that. I really like Elon Musk's idea of if he were to create a school, which I believe he did for his kids. But he's like, if I were to create a school, what I would do is it would all be project based. I personally, I'm obsessed with projects. I think projects are like little mini journeys of self-development, and you get to pick. You normally want to pick a project that's going to be just outside of, I guess, what Jordan Peterson calls your zone of proximal development. So just outside of your reach currently, and then that will force you to grow. But dude, I swear, projects are so powerful. I really like that idea. I think we should all be doing projects. And by the way, I finished my finance video. Finally, it took me fucking 7 months. So I'd like to send it to you, maybe to the group, just to get your guys' feedback. But anyway, each little mini project I do, it makes you exercise that willpower, but for a greater purpose, not just for sitting in a seat because the teacher said so.
Yeah, man. Dude, I think it's so true. And it could be whether, like, you know, some people are good with their hands, so it's like learning how to craft certain stuff. You know, you could, anything, like learning how to do that, you know, going through the process of having it, like, you know, say at a point it sucks. It's like, well, it doesn't mean it's going to suck forever. This is the thing I started thinking about this weekend. It's kind of directly related to this. And this is something I think I've erred in my kind of younger life, was like, because especially when you're younger, it's like, all right, I got to do something with myself. And then you try things, and the negative aspects of those things are immediately apparent always. And then what I would do is I would jump from thing to thing and be like, well, let me do this thing. And I'm like, oh man, turns out this thing has negative aspects to it too. And I'm like, what about this? I'm like, fuck, this does too. And you can jump from thing to thing to thing to thing. Then eventually so much time passes and you're like, damn, I never got good at anything. And then you get deeply resentful, and that's a deep kind of level of sadness. And
then you get that comment that comes in. It's like, oh, don't be greedy, right? Like just at the right time, we're like, oh, I'm not making progress, and oh yeah, no, I shouldn't be greedy, so I'm just going to sit back and watch fucking 5 hours of TV.
Exactly. And then it's like, yeah, I'm actually doing the right thing. And it's like, I mean, if you can spin that into like something that pumps you up, cool. Like, you know, okay, cool. Whatever. But yeah, I agree with you, Wes. It's like, you know, the world could be better served if you were kind of offering your as much of your kind of willful effort as possible into kind of like doing something beneficial, like truly beneficial or useful. And that's where I think the hang up comes between like the more mentality. It's like, well, why do you want more? And like, are you going to trade something actually beneficial, or are you just fucking people over and just taking as much shit for yourself as possible and just coming and stuffing yourself with food? People typically don't like that. They're like, I don't like that. So it's like, you know, that's, I think, where it kind of gets a bad rap. But, you know, whatever. The thing I was thinking of, especially for younger people, it's like, and it's kind of a bizarre and weird analogy, but it's like, you just have to suck the dick of life. You have to. It's hard.
There's a little bit of a bizarre analogy.
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. And you're like, I don't want to. And it's like, you got it. And you're like, I don't want to. And you have to eventually. You're going to eventually. You know? It might force you. But it's like, you have to pick a thing and just, you have to suck it. You have to.
I get it. I get it.
And if you do it for long enough, it's like, and it goes down. You just get to enjoy the benefits of it, but you cannot evade it. You must.
So it's just so this analogy doesn't break down in my head. What are the benefits of doing that?
So again, this is like what they call, I think, the Jungian concept of like the pure arturnus, which is like the Peter Pan thing Peterson talks about. You never want to give yourself over to like a thing because you're like, I'm so much more than that thing in some sense, but you're not really doing anything. That's all in your imagination. And then time passes and you just never gave yourself to anything, and you never developed a skill with which to serve the world in a way that will kind of sustain you through the later period of your life.
Got it.
What happens is you avoided that kind of pain in your young life of like doing repetitive tasks that are boring or kind of offend your sense of like, you know, let's say like where you think you deserve to be perceived as and position wise, you know, and you have to be like the coffee bitch basically. When I was 21, I was like, fuck this, I shouldn't be, but I should have been a coffee bitch. I just didn't feel like I should have been. But if you like, that's a level of pain you experience as a younger person. But if you can persevere through that, the world kind of opens back up since you've like developed skills, you've developed relationships, and now you can actually serve the world in a specific function that people find valuable versus like never giving yourself over to anything, and you avoid the short-term pain of as a young person. But then your older years are kind of shitty because you're like, I never learned a skill, and now like, you know, you're kind of bouncing around from thing to thing.
Oh yeah, I think the comments are great. Kaizen is talking. He also said it's important to note that it's never too late to start.
That's Dogfight. That's Ray. Kaizen said embrace the sun.
Oh shit, yeah. Sorry. Yes, Kaizen just said Ray. Oh yeah, no, I completely agree with Ray. I mean, especially now with the internet, dude, it's crazy. Like it is so crazy. In fact, I would argue for like. Any idea how much a 90-year-old who just got introduced to YouTube and started creating YouTube videos, he would crush it. Yeah. He would crush it. Right? Like, I mean, that, like, so yeah, it now more than ever, that's completely true. That is never too late. And when you are on that path of progress of something that you want to be on, it's just a game changer. Yeah. The very minute you start doing it and you feel natural, it's crazy. Like it's its own feedback reward system instantaneously.
Yeah, and also too, to Ray's point, the thing to take solace in if you were like, man, I have waited for too long, blah blah blah, is that you can then go do that thing with such a clear and fresh perspective. And like, you know, and then the other trade-off is, you know, sometimes people don't question anything critically and like go about that path and just mindlessly serve, and they're like, yeah, I'm waiting for my reward. When in reality, it's like then you get people who, you know, and everything's so complicated, but it's like you get someone who just doesn't question anything, goes the career path, does all the right things, and then they go, did I really want to do this? Versus, you know, so you need a little mix of both. Does that make sense? Like
Absolutely.
I know people who've just done the office thing, everything by the textbook, and then they get a little older and they go, oh man, I think there was more I could have done. Whereas someone who's like, I've completely exhausted my options in terms of things that I can do. So I don't have any of those hangups of like, you know, like, should I be doing this? I mean, you know, it's like they're very minimal. So I can just give myself to things because there's no part of me that can fantasize about like what life could be like because I've lived a lot of it and be like, nah, it's not that cool. So go, you know. So I think, you know, when you think of things like Ray or anyone else, it's like, yeah, man, when you finally if you get a lot of that bullshit out of your system, you can really make up a lot of that time a lot faster than people think.
Yeah, well, I think those mental blocks get in the way. I also think that two of the biggest mental blocks I think that I personally have had, and I think a lot of men have, is we go too far with sports analogies and school. We get caught up in these analogies of like, oh well, if you're just, you know, I've been told constantly, it's like, well, if you're not 7 feet tall, you're not going to play in the NBA, and that used as an like, if you're just not talented, you're not sure. going to go there. The problem with the sports analogy is that number one, like, it's such a short time frame that you actually have to be successful in sports. Like if you look at like the way you grow up through sports, if you're not great in high school, you're not getting to a Division I, you know, college program. Like that's not very likely not going to happen. But the problem is that's such a short time horizon, right? High school, let's just say, grade school through high school. And if you're on the shorter end of the puberty curve, like if you're playing against men and you're still a boy, right? You got basically no shot. Let's just say that. Yeah. And then same thing with school. School works against you. Like a lot of men are hanging around. It's like, oh, I didn't do good in school. It's like, well, no shit. It's crazy that any men do good in school because the topics are terrible, right? You're just not interested in 95% of them. They jam it down your throat. right, for 7 hours a day when you'd rather be out playing basketball or whatever it is. And the books they tell you to read are unbelievably unrelatable to you and your life. It's like, we go in with those. I have found a lot of men, including myself, have gone into adult life of saying, well, I didn't make it to the MBA and I wasn't great in school. Now, I got lucky. I was super good in school because my mom would have killed me if I wasn't otherwise. But a lot of men have told me, it's like, well, I just didn't do good in school, so therefore I've got this implied message of I'm not going to do good in my adult life. And both of those analogies are complete bullshit. Only use them if they're helping you, but if they're hurting you, they have no fundamental truth, in my opinion, truth in adult life.
Dude, I mean, it's so true. And I lucked out where I knew people who sucked at school but still did well. So like that kind of took a lot of pressure off me for school. But like, yeah, man, there's a lot of people who are just in that generational loop. Like, yo, if you don't get the school thing figured out, you're fucked. And it's, and it is important. It's super important to educate yourself. They're not wrong, but it's like,
it's not a death sentence.
Exactly. And your education doesn't end with school. You can continue to, especially like you say now, dude, with the internet, it's like, what do you want to know? Look it up. You can find people to break down anything to where you can start videos on astrophysics and you'll find a video where someone can explain it down to your level and you can start from there.
That's exactly right.
It's there's really, it's getting to the point now where, and I truly believe this, where it's like, dude, do you want to do something or not? And it's like, true, maybe the thing that you truly feel like you want to do, maybe it just is out of your, purview or whatever. Maybe you won't get that thing the way you want it, but it's like your life will guaranteed be better if you pursue that thing and then slowly kind of figure out exactly like, all right, like, maybe you do it and you go, actually, I kind of would like this. It's like, to me, it's a very binary thing of like, if you're working on something and working on yourself and opening out yourself up and kind of persevering through all your fears and uncomfortable, your discomforts, if you push through that stuff, your life gets better. If you don't, everything kind of closes in on you and you become bitter. I swear to God, I think that I'm pretty cautious with what I say is like, this is totally true. It's like, I do believe that's totally true.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so I would love to throw it out there as a challenge to the guys. If like you're wondering about what you should do, try a project, like a little passion project. I think a lot of times men get caught up in, it's like, oh, what are you passionate about? Sometimes, and which is a great question, but I think sometimes if you don't have that answer and into like its fullest detail, then it can be a bit overwhelming. It's like, well, what are you passionate about right now that you could take? You could create a tiny little micro project that could serve at least one other person, and that one other person could be you. Like that could serve that person. Like right now, the videos that I want to create, it's like, oh, well, I love finance and I want to create some on like this types of things. Like Matt, like what you're doing is admirable. Like you're going out and you're creating all of these little pockets of things that you want to create. And it's like, why are we not all doing that? And why are we not doing it to serve ourselves and scratch our own itch and then offer it out there into the world? And if the world doesn't like it, who gives a shit? But now with the internet, you're going to find people who like it. Yeah. It's literally opened up basically the entire world to you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, dude, even like my backyard right now, it's purely for us. I just want it to look nice. I want it to look pretty. And it's like, it brings me in, and I didn't think I'd really be into doing this until I started actually doing it. Dude, the pleasure I get about like planning my backyard out and laying my little stone pathway down and doing all that stuff and like planning out my little raised garden beds. It's like, oh my God, dude. I'm like, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm working, but it's like, I just can't wait to get back to my backyard and do back there. And it's like, I would never have known that unless I actually did it. If you would ask me like, hey, you want to design a yard? I'm like, no, I don't think I'd like to do that. And you start doing it and you're like, this is really cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm reading over here, and Ray. Yeah. So the guy said it's coming too. Ray said he posted a little Instagram lesson on an artist last week. Hell yeah, Ray! If maybe you've shared this on Discord, I didn't see it. Is there any chance you could share that with us? I would love to see it.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, little things like that, man. If you can create a little 5-minute proposal or create a 5-minute video or something like that you think will benefit yourself and others, and post to the Discord if you guys are down for the challenge. I will post my video as well.
Hell yeah, dude! I actually the thing that I did with the Psych Null meditation video, I for some reason had this weird block in my head. I was like, I don't want to do a multi-part thing. I want it to be one video, everything at once, and it became apparent to me. I was like, this is a bit of a cram and it's getting confusing. So I was able to like really break it down into 3 different levels, and it will come out in like shorter little parts of video. So it's not this like, so yep. I'm like excited for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then just as a note to everybody, if you guys are posting your projects, like, don't be nervous. I know Jake was nervous to post his project because he creates music for artists, and I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not even going to try, but he creates music for artists, and his stuff is up on Spotify. And when I was talking to him, he's like, yeah, but I don't think all the guys are into it. It's like, that doesn't matter, right? Like, all of us are in different areas of the world. Post it. And when I post my finance video, I don't expect you guys to be interested in stocks versus bonds. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but that's not the point. It's just getting out there, getting the balls to deliver your goods to the world, and whoever likes it likes, and if they don't, they don't. And I imagine our team is not going to judge you on whether or not they are intrinsically motivated to like that particular topic, but they can look at other aspects and say, hell yeah, like, I'm not into backyard grooming, but Matt is, and I could take valuable lessons from that just in the underlying fundamentals of it.
Dude, 100%, you're spot on. It's like, can you transcend that little critical voice in your head and get out from underneath that thing being like the sole arbiter of your experience of reality, and actually do things, and then go from there.
Yeah, it's like, productive versus passive.
Say you do something that just stinks. It's so bad, like, every single person goes, oh my god, that thing sucks. You just laugh and be like, yeah, fuck man, that thing sucks.
Yep.
And you go, the next thing you know why it sucks, and you're like, well, what if I did this? And that fucking sucks too. And you're like, okay. And then you're like, all right, maybe I'll do something else. But it's like, even that's preferable to just sitting in your head and being like, no, I can't do anything. Who am I kidding? It's like,
well, and the cool thing is that, especially now if you use the internet to help supplement your knowledge in an area, the thing that you created will suck less than it did last time.
Oh my god.
And then if you just keep on going on that scale of like, I want to suck a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less, and eventually it's like, oh, that's actually pretty good.
Dude, and here's the other thing. So, and of course, you're at a day job. You're nervous about like speaking up in a presentation. Now you've done little projects. Now you've taken feedback. Now you raise your hand in a presentation. Now that's not that scary. You know what I mean? So it's like, or being like, well, I have to do something uncomfortable. You start whatever method you're doing it, like you were saying, Wes, doesn't matter. You're just flexing that muscle that is persevering through personal discomfort.
Dude,
it'll come out in ways that it just ripples out in like all the different dimensions of your life that you probably are like, well, that's just how I am. And it's like,
yep.
Well, okay.
Dude, I can tell you, and this, I'm not trying to sound like a douchebag when I say this, but I can tell you that when I was on Wall Street, arguably you're talking about the top of the top of the top, right? People who are like career driven, at all cost. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that the people, it was me and maybe two other guys who liked the stuff that we're doing, who would do projects on the side to advance our skill. And this is how nerdy it is, advance our skill with Microsoft Excel. I used to play an Excel game, like literally a video game to enhance Excel keyboard shortcuts. Same thing with Microsoft PowerPoint. I used to create my own projects and so on. At that top level, the only guys who were beating the rest of the peers were the people who did projects on the side to advance their skill every single time. So it's like, if you can do that at that level, then we can do it at all levels.
Yeah.
So there's just something about humans, and if you're going down a path that you are intrinsically motivated to go down to the point where you're doing it in your free time, you're creating these little things for yourself, then the rest of the world will appreciate it. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and like you were saying, you almost enter into a class of your own, like just by default.
Yep. Yeah, because you're doing it for the craft, not just for the reward. Because when you just do it for the reward, then you're only going to do the perceived things of the path of people before you. Versus if you're doing it because you're intrinsically interested in it, you're going to explore beyond the current frontier. And that changes the game.
That's very zen. That's a very zen perspective.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, work not for the fruits, but for the fun of the enjoyment of doing it. That's
there you go.
Thing.
Cool. Well, I know we took a different topic today, but I thought that was a good session, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, bro. That's that is the thing I've been really focusing on how to do and how to kind of like put that thing into people's minds, because people they resent that message. They're like, no. It's like. All right, it's the thing you need. No.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, man, dude, pumped on you, and we'll meet back Friday. And also, just real quick for this week, everyone throw their stuff in as well. I am really just trying to finish the main thing. I've been trying to think of my weeks like this. Like, what is the number one thing? craft or work wise, I want my week to revolve around, it's the Psych Now meditation. So I have that worked out. I will put something out because I'm going to break it down into little chunks. I also I'm trying to schedule my week around like 4 different things, which is like kind of like the deepening my meditation practice, doing something professionally, and like doing just one small thing for like my family, whether it be like just taking my dog somewhere cool, taking, Brittany somewhere, or taking Maya somewhere, or all of them. So I'm going to take Maya to the Wissahickon, let her walk around the trails. And other than that, I just have a little beach day coming up on Friday. So
what beach, bro?
I don't know. Actually, I have no idea. We're going down to visit Brittany's friends. So it's like, again, I've been trying to break my week down. Special thing I can do for my family. What's my number one work thing? And, what am I going to do to kind of enjoy myself? And, so.
Hell yeah. Awesome, dude. Cool. All right. For me, 2 major things. Got done the finance video. So finally, after 6 months of every week telling you guys I'm going to finish the finance video, done. Rhomas University, and I want to crush the seminars this week, specifically just so I'm saying it out in the universe, where I lacked last time, where I need to really get, like, we've got it down. There's 60 steps that I follow to get to butts and seats. So it's like everything is measured in an Excel sheet exactly, precisely, and so on. And we've hit all of our targets. So then after that is where I really need to tighten up. So once people come to the workshop, how do you get them convert to having a meeting and then ultimately to managing their money? Like that's the part that I really want to nail home this time. So every, it's giving me a gut check because these are $10,000 tests every time. 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. So it's like I really need to tighten up the ship. So I imagine that hopefully by next year, I'll actually be somewhat okay at it. So when we talk about being bad at something, it's like, imagine being bad at it and losing $10,000 every single time. You're not good at it. Yeah. So that's what's going on right now.
I got to give you so much credit, man. The way you operate is really a thing that like keeps me. It's a good thing for me to have on the horizon because it just really stops me from being a piece of shit. Because it's whenever I think about it, just being a lazy fucking toad, I just like I'll talk to you for 5 minutes. I'm like, all right, I can tweak out this. I can speak out 2,500 words on the Word doc. Like, let me stop being a fucking degenerate.
Dude, I appreciate the compliment, but it's the same thing. Like I talked to this other guy. The whole reason I'm doing all this was because I talked to this guy 2 years ago. We were at a business trip in Hawaii, and he was like the top guy, and I kind of pulled him to the side, and he made me feel, it's like, what am I doing? I was like, just out of curiosity, how much money did you spend last year on coaching? If you had to guess, how much money would you think is unreasonable to spend on coaching? When, by the way, he makes $13 million a year.
Unreasonable, I would say, like for $13 million. Unreasonable, I'll say $1 million.
Oh no, so he spends $200,000.
Okay, sorry, so I knew I was being
200. No, that's okay. That's good. He spends $200,000 a year on coaching. And it's like, where do you even find the time? He runs this big organization, but it's like, and I looked at my own, finances, and it's like, I spend $1,000. He spends 200,000, right? Like, and it's like, there's a correlation. Then I talked to 2 other guys in that circle. The other guy made $1 million a year, and he spent $60,000 the year prior on coaching. It's like, I need to start really investing in myself, like really investing in myself.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I'm definitely going to do, when I start getting back into fiction writing, once I tie up all these other projects, I think I will. I did something like that one time, and it was like, it was really helpful. So I think I'm
dude. So yeah. If we can, maybe it would be cool to have some of the guys tag along. If you're down for it, I would love to go to a conference with you, like something where we're both interested. Maybe it's a video creators conference, or maybe it's a psychology conference, but immersion sessions over a weekend or a couple of days, dude. Like, in my opinion, there's no better way to make faster progress than going into a really phenomenal conference for like 2, 3, 4 days.
No, that's awesome. Definitely will have to.
Cool. All right, dudes. Awesome session. Thank you, dudes. And thanks, Matt. Talk to you later this week.
Later on.